All right, time now for Sunrise in Focus. And today we're talking about surviving messy divorces. They can easily leave you in emotional, financial and domestic ruin.
So how can you get through this period? Our relationships expert Des Croy is here, along with mediator Michael Green QC. Good morning to you both. Now, Des, just how severe emotionally is the emotional effect of divorce?
Divorce is one of the most stressful events a person can go through in life. On a scale of psychological stress, it ranks right up there with death of spouse as one of the most stressful events. Even if a couple is attempting to go through a divorce amicably, it's still very difficult. But when there's anger, when there's blame, when there's resentment, it's the repository of pure pain. But it doesn't have to be.
Okay. Michael, you mediate for couples divorcing. I would imagine you would see tensions escalate. You would see all this stress coming out in couples.
Oh, absolutely, and Des is entirely correct, of course. It's a tough time for everybody, but there are ways to make it a little bit easier, and mediation, of course, is one of them. Unfortunately, our culture seems to be when you separate, you reach for a lawyer. And of course, then it's very easy to be sucked into the adversarial process, the court process, and all that involves. And as Des says, it's emotionally and financially very draining. So what we need to do these days is to educate people to do it in a more sensible, intelligent way, and mediation is one of the ways that enables people to cope with this more sensibly. And of course, a lot of individuals need the counselling services that Des offers.
Okay, Michael, just explain how mediation is different to going through the lawyers. Do you have a lawyer with mediation?
Can have a lawyer, yes, indeed. I run Michael Green Mediations, and I'm associated, as you know, with LEADR, which is the professional organisation here in New South Wales, LEADR. And the differences are quite marked and important. And the big one is, of course, that the couple themselves, let's take a separating couple, instead of asking a lawyer or a magistrate or a judge to make the decision for them, they actually make the decision with the help of an independent third-party neutral person who gets them around the table, encourages them and facilitates their discussion, to talk themselves through it, to talk to one another, sometimes reasonably for the first time, to develop options and to come up with a solution to their particular family situation after separation divorce, which will work for them, and if there's children in particular, that will be very beneficial.
Do they have lawyers with them? They
can have lawyers.
Right.
Some of my clients bring their lawyers with them, that's fine. Others have simply been to a lawyer for some advice beforehand. Some don't. These days we're finding a lot of people don't go near lawyers at all.
You mentioned children. Des, that's what I wanted to ask you, particularly in a relationship where there are children. How important is it to try, I would imagine emotions are out of control, as you say, you know, it's a very tense time, but how important would it be to avoid, I guess, insulting or saying things that couples would later regret, or get into a situation, particularly when there are kids involved, of two warring parents?
Well, look, emotions are already running very high to begin with there, but what you don't want to do is light a fuse under your partner's anger and create a giant explosion that is going to negatively affect the children. The children come first, so I think it's vital to leave the children out of it. And quite often, parents will emotionally lean on their children at this very difficult time to get relief from the pain or the anger they have, but children are not equipped for that. They're not. So if you need to get support, go to counseling, get some counseling, and then, I mean, people are faced with two choices here. No matter what your partner is doing, the first choice is to take the low road, which is anger, bitterness, and blame, and that's going to wind up hurting yourself and most definitely your children, or the high road, which is to do mediation or counseling or treat it like a business decision and get out of it as gracefully as possible. Those are the two choices.
We're going through a stage of life where a lot of our friends are getting separated, and it almost seems as though because the wife has a stronger emotional bond to the children, the husbands use their financial power to almost get back. And that's where the sort of disputes all arise, and it's, Michael, it gets pretty messy in terms of property settlements as well. How do you mediate something like that? And again, from our experience, just from our friends, often wives are given unreal expectations that they might get 65–70% of the settlement. Now that's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, well, but certainly there are problems here, of course. The emotional intensity of the situation makes it very difficult to enable people to be reasonable in their judgments and their arguments, and also, of course, in how they see their futures. But we find that through careful preparation, by telling people what the mediation process is and encouraging them to be sensible, to get have the benefit of legal advice, yes, but don't let that override them. And also these days, of course, there's been, I think, what we're saying, an outbreak of common sense, is that both fathers and mothers are being seen as being important for the children throughout their lives, not only in intact families, but of course in separated families, and that's been recognised more and more. And so the division of home, property, assets and all of that is being looked at, I think, in a more sensible and more intelligent way.
Can't you? There's some great advice. Obviously, seek help, mediation, counselling, as much help as you need. Thank you both so much.
We haven't even scratched the surface, I don't think, so we'll keep returning to this issue. Thank you guys for your time this morning.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
It's a
Thank you.
big issue, isn't it?
It's an enormous issue and a really emotive one.